February 12th, 1944, 3:20 hours. German defensive position, Monte Cassino, Italy. Obergefreiter Hans Dietrich had survived 2 years on the Eastern Front before his transfer to Italy. He understood fear, the sick anticipation before Soviet artillery barrages, the cold terror of close quarters fighting in Stalingrad's ruins, the exhausting vigilance required to survive partisan operations. He'd learned to manage these fears through training, discipline, and the solidarity of his unit. What he experienced during his first night facing Gurkha troops was different. A primal unease that no amount of military experience could adequately prepare him for. His squad occupied a reinforced position on the Monte Cassino heights, part of the German defensive line that was supposed to be impregnable. The terrain favored defenders completely: steep approaches, cleared fields of fire, interlocking defensive positions. Allied forces attempting to assault these positions would have to advance uphill under direct observation, through minefields and wire obstacles, against dug-in machine guns. Standard defensive warfare doctrine said this position should hold indefinitely against conventional assault. The night was moonless and quiet. Dietrich's watch showed 03:20, the dead hours when human alertness declined naturally and attacks were least expected. He heard something that didn't belong to the normal night sounds, not the rustle of wind through rocks or the distant artillery that rumbled constantly. Something closer. Movement where no movement should be possible. He strained to identify the sound's source. The slope below his position was too steep for infantry assault, nearly vertical in places, with loose scree that would create noise with any movement. Yet he heard scraping sounds suggesting someone or something was climbing that impossible approach. He reached for the flare pistol, prepared to illuminate the slope and identify what was making those sounds. Before he could fire the flare, a figure appeared at the parapet rim. Emerging from an approach angle Dietrich had assumed was physically impossible to climb. The figure moved with liquid silence, already inside the perimeter before Dietrich could react. He glimpsed a face that seemed wrong somehow. Asian features where he expected European, compact build suggesting exceptional physical fitness, and something in the eyes that suggested absolute certainty about what would happen next. Dietrich tried to bring his rifle to bear, but the figure closed the distance with speed that seemed impossible. A curved blade flashed once in the darkness. Dietrich felt impact, and then nothing. The figure, a Gurkha rifleman from the 1st Gurkha Rifles, moved immediately to the next position, his kukri already clean and ready. Behind him, more Gurkhas scaled the cliff face that German defensive planning had dismissed as impassable. The German position fell within 20 minutes. When dawn revealed what had happened, surviving German defenders struggled to explain how their prepared position had been penetrated so completely. The official report stated, enemy forces, believed to be Gurkha units, conducted night assault via approach considered impossible during defensive planning. Assault achieved complete surprise. Position was overrun before effective response could be organized. Casualties severe. Recommend increased vigilance against Gurkha operations and revision of defensive planning to account for their capabilities. That report would be echoed across multiple German units throughout the Italian campaign. Acknowledgement that they faced an enemy whose capabilities defied conventional military analysis. The soldiers from the roof of the world. The brigade of Gurkhas represented military tradition extending back over a century to British campaigns in Nepal and India. Recruited from hill tribes in Nepal's mountain regions, Gurkha soldiers brought capabilities that no amount of European military training could replicate. They grew up at altitudes where European soldiers struggled to breathe. They learned mountain navigation in terrain that made the Italian Apennines look gentle. They developed physical endurance through childhood spent climbing, carrying loads, and working in conditions that would exhaust lowlanders. The selection process for Gurkha service was brutally competitive. For every man accepted into British service, dozens were rejected. The successful candidates represented physical specimens optimized by generations of adaptation to high-altitude mountain life. British recruiters noted consistently that Gurkha volunteers possessed lung capacity, cardiovascular efficiency, and muscular endurance that exceeded European soldiers who underwent similar training regimens. The training built on this natural foundation systematically. Gurkha recruits learned conventional infantry skills, weapons handling, tactics, communications, but these were overlaid on mountain warfare expertise that was simply part of their cultural background. Navigation without maps or compasses, movement through terrain that looked impassable, survival with minimal equipment. These weren't specialized skills for Gurkhas, but basic competencies they'd developed before military service. The kukri, the distinctive curved knife every Gurkha carried, was simultaneously practical tool and psychological weapon. The blade's design allowed it to function as machete, utility knife, and combat weapon. Gurkha soldiers learned kukri handling from childhood, developing the muscle memory and technique that made the weapon effective in combat. The kukri's reputation among Axis forces owed much to this genuine combat effectiveness. It wasn't merely ceremonial or symbolic, but a weapon Gurkhas employed with devastating skill. British officers commanding Gurkha units consistently reported that these soldiers possessed qualities that couldn't be trained into troops from other backgrounds. The physical capabilities were obvious: endurance, strength, altitude tolerance, but the psychological characteristics proved equally significant. Gurkhas demonstrated calmness under fire that impressed even veteran British officers. They accepted orders without complaint and executed them with determination that bordered on stubbornness. Most remarkably, they seemed genuinely fearless in combat situations that caused other troops to hesitate or break. This fearlessness wasn't recklessness or ignorance of danger. Gurkha soldiers understood battlefield risks perfectly well. Their apparent fearlessness came from cultural attitudes toward death, duty, and honor that were fundamentally different from European military traditions. The Gurkha concept of izzat, personal and unit honor, created psychological framework where failure or cowardice was literally worse than death. This wasn't propaganda or indoctrination, but deeply held cultural value that shaped behavior under the most extreme combat stress. Italy, where mountain warfare met masters. The Italian campaign provided perfect conditions for Gurkha capabilities to prove decisive. The terrain, steep mountains, narrow valleys, fortified ridges, favored defenders who could employ conventional tactics. German forces had prepared defensive positions throughout the Italian peninsula, using terrain to multiply their combat power and offset Allied numerical advantages. These defensive lines should have been nearly impregnable against frontal assault by conventional forces. Gurkha units transformed this tactical calculus by attacking from directions German planning considered impossible. German defensive doctrine assumed that certain terrain features were impassable, too steep, too exposed, too difficult to traverse while carrying weapons and equipment. Gurkha soldiers treated these impassable approaches as normal operating terrain. They climbed cliffs at night, carrying full combat loads. They navigated ridgelines that German observers dismissed as inaccessible. They appeared in positions that defensive planning hadn't accounted for because the approaches seemed physically impossible. The assault on Point 593 during the Cassino battles exemplified this capability. German forces held a critical ridge position that controlled approaches to the Cassino monastery. The position was considered extremely strong: steep approaches, clear fields of fire, well-prepared defensive works. Multiple Allied attacks had failed with heavy casualties. The 1st 9th Gurkha Rifles were assigned to assault the position using an approach that previous planners had dismissed as too difficult. The Gurkhas attacked at night, climbing a near-vertical slope in darkness. German defenders heard movement, but couldn't believe anyone was attempting assault from that direction. By the time they realized what was happening, Gurkha troops were already within grenade range. The subsequent close-quarters fighting lasted several hours and was extraordinarily violent. Gurkha soldiers used kukris extensively, not from preference for blade weapons over firearms, but because the confined defensive positions and darkness made rifle fire difficult, while kukris remained effective in any visibility condition. German survivors of the Point 593 fighting reported experiences that shaped Wehrmacht perceptions of Gurkhas throughout the remainder of the Italian campaign. One account stated, "They came from the cliff face we thought was unclimbable. We heard them, but couldn't see them until they were already in our positions. The fighting was at arm's length: bayonets, knives, rifle butts. They didn't make noise even during combat. When morning came, our position was gone, and most of my company was dead or wounded. I survived only because I was knocked unconscious early in the fighting." The tactical pattern repeated across numerous engagements. German forces would prepare defensive positions according to conventional doctrine. German officers would inspect approaches and determine which were viable attack routes. German defensive planning would focus on these identified approaches. Then Gurkha units would attack from directions the planning had dismissed as impossible, achieve surprise, and overwhelm positions before German forces could adjust their defensive schemes. The psychological dimension. That doctrine couldn't address German military effectiveness depended substantially on psychological factors: unit cohesion, belief in training and leadership, confidence that German forces were superior to opponents. These psychological elements had been carefully cultivated through training and reinforced through early war successes. German soldiers entered combat believing they were better trained, better led, and more capable than their enemies. This belief was operationally significant. It made them aggressive, confident, and resilient under adversity. Gurkha forces undermined these psychological foundations in ways that conventional Allied forces couldn't replicate. German soldiers could rationalize defeats by American or British forces as results of material superiority: more artillery, more air support, better logistics. They could maintain belief in their own tactical excellence, even while losing battles, because they attributed defeats to factors other than enemy soldier quality. Gurkhas denied this rationalization. When German positions fell to Gurkha assault, the explanation couldn't be material superiority. Gurkhas attacked with the same weapons other Allied infantry used, often with less artillery support, because mountain terrain, limited fire support, effectiveness. The explanation couldn't be numerical advantage. Gurkha attacks often succeeded despite attacking forces being outnumbered by defenders. The only explanation available was that Gurkha soldiers were simply more effective in mountain combat than German soldiers, and that realization corroded German confidence profoundly. The fear German soldiers developed regarding Gurkhas was qualitatively different from the caution they showed toward American armor or Soviet artillery. Those threats could be understood within conventional military frameworks. More tanks meant heavier armor attacks. More artillery meant devastating bombardments. Gurkha capabilities didn't fit conventional frameworks. They attacked from impossible directions, fought effectively in conditions where visibility and fields of fire should have favored defenders, and demonstrated personal combat effectiveness that seemed to exceed what training alone could produce. German military psychology had no adequate response to enemies who seemed genuinely fearless. Wehrmacht training emphasized courage and duty, but German soldiers understood that fear was natural and managing it was part of soldiering. Gurkhas appeared not to experience fear in ways German soldiers recognized. They advanced under fire without the hesitation that self-preservation instinct normally produced. They fought in close quarters with intensity that suggested they actively preferred hand-to-hand combat to safer engagement at distance. This behavior was so far outside German soldiers' psychological framework that it induced genuine terror. The rumors and stories that circulated among German units magnified this psychological impact. Soldiers who hadn't personally encountered Gurkhas heard accounts from those who had. These accounts emphasized the most psychologically disturbing elements: silent approaches, sudden appearances in prepared positions, devastating effectiveness in close combat, apparent immunity to fear. Each retelling amplified the psychological effect until Gurkha reputation exceeded even their genuine combat capabilities. This was psychological warfare at its most effective. The enemy's reputation became a weapon that degraded German combat effectiveness before physical fighting even began. Burma, where jungle warfare met Himalayan fighters. The Burma campaign provided different operational environment than Italy, but equally highlighted Gurkha capabilities. The dense jungle, monsoon conditions, and mountainous terrain created combat conditions where conventional military advantages diminished and individual soldier quality became paramount. Gurkha forces proved exceptionally effective in this environment, conducting operations that other units struggled to accomplish. The Chindit operations, British long-range penetration missions behind Japanese lines, included substantial Gurkha components. These operations required soldiers to operate independently in hostile territory, navigate without conventional support, and survive through resourcefulness and determination. Gurkha troops proved ideal for these missions because their background prepared them for exactly this type of warfare. They could navigate mountain jungle terrain that stopped other troops. They required minimal supplies and could sustain operations on reduced rations that would incapacitate European soldiers. They remained effective in monsoon conditions that degraded most units' combat capability. The fighting around Imphal and Kohima in 1944 showcased Gurkha effectiveness in sustained defensive and offensive operations. Japanese forces attacked these positions with determination and initial success, threatening to break through into India. Gurkha units played critical roles in holding defensive perimeters under extreme pressure and in counterattacks that eventually drove Japanese forces back. The close-quarters jungle fighting suited Gurkha combat methods perfectly: short engagement ranges, emphasis on small unit tactics, and situations where individual soldier quality mattered more than heavy firepower. British commanders in Burma consistently noted Gurkha reliability under conditions where other units struggled. One assessment stated, "Gurkha battalions maintain operational effectiveness in jungle and mountain conditions where British units require extensive acclimatization and support. These soldiers adapt naturally to terrain and climate that European troops find debilitating. Their performance in offensive operations demonstrates aggression and tactical skill. In defensive situations, they hold positions with determination that inspires confidence." Burma operations would be substantially more difficult without Gurkha contributions. The Japanese perspective on Gurkha forces mirrored German assessments. Japanese intelligence identified Gurkha units as particularly dangerous opponents. Japanese tactical guidance advised caution when engaging Gurkha forces and recommended avoiding close-quarters combat, where Gurkha advantages in terrain familiarity and hand-to-hand fighting capability would be decisive. This convergence of German and Japanese assessment, two militaries with very different tactical traditions, both concluding that Gurkha forces required special consideration, validated the objective reality of Gurkha combat effectiveness. The soldiers who proved that culture matters. The Gurkha experience in World War II demonstrated that military effectiveness derives not solely from technology, doctrine, or numbers, but substantially from human qualities that training can enhance but not create. The physical capabilities that high-altitude mountain life produced, the psychological resilience that cultural values instilled, the tactical skills that grew from childhood experience in difficult terrain, these combined to produce soldiers whose combat effectiveness exceeded what European military traditions could replicate through training alone. This wasn't racial superiority or mystical warrior spirit, but practical reality that cultural background shaped military capabilities in concrete ways. German soldiers who encountered Gurkha forces weren't responding to propaganda or allowing cultural prejudices to cloud tactical judgment. They were reacting rationally to enemies who demonstrated capabilities that German training and experience hadn't prepared them to counter effectively. The kukri became symbol of this effectiveness, not because the blade itself was technologically superior to European military knives, but because Gurkha skill in using it demonstrated mastery that came from cultural tradition rather than military instruction. German soldiers who survived kukri attacks remembered the experience not because knives were inherently more frightening than bullets, but because being attacked by enemies using blades with exceptional skill in close quarters where superior German firepower became irrelevant was psychologically devastating. The mountain warfare expertise that Gurkha soldiers brought to Italian and Burma campaigns wasn't merely a result of good training. It was synthesis of lifetime experience with military application. European soldiers could learn mountain warfare through training, but they were learning skills Gurkha soldiers had practiced since childhood. That difference in depth of competence showed clearly in operational effectiveness. The fearlessness that German soldiers noted in Gurkha combat behavior wasn't absence of fear, but cultural framework that made duty and honor more psychologically compelling than self-preservation. This wasn't something German military training could counter because it wasn't tactical or technical advantage, but fundamental difference in how soldiers conceptualized their relationship to death, duty, and personal honor. The simple truth that German veterans acknowledged, sometimes reluctantly but consistently, was that Gurkha soldiers were the most dangerous close combat infantry they encountered during the entire war. Not because Gurkhas had better weapons or superior numbers, but because they combined physical capabilities, psychological characteristics, and tactical skills into synthesis that German military tradition couldn't match. That synthesis made them exactly what their reputation claimed: warriors whose effectiveness came not from technology or doctrine, but from culture, character, and centuries of tradition applied to modern warfare with devastating effect.